What's up, guys? It's your boy Wolf. To all my kind folk and gentle people out there, I just want to say, knee's coming along pretty good. I had a couple friends suggest a peptide that I've been taking, and it's been going very well. Um, Pretty much can do most things. I'm not really trying to do anything crazy, um, but it's not as swollen anymore. There's not as much fluid. The kneecap seems pretty solid there. Um, haven't started PT yet. Unfortunately, they couldn't get me in until after I see my doctor next. Um, but I've been doing enough or have had enough problems with my left knee that I know exactly kind of what to do. So I've been doing a little bit of those workouts. Workouts, they're not really workouts, they're exercises. And I think they've been doing very well. They've been working. They've been keeping my quad nice and from atrophy and everything. And so, just short message there that everything is going well and hopefully, no issues come July 8th when I see the doctor again. Um, Today's episode, really is just going to be going over, the upcoming weekend of professional wrestling. I did say that I wanted to do some videos going over upcoming events, maybe comment on some stuff that happened during the week. And of course, we've had some big news come out as it maintains or it's related to wrestlers and their contracts not being renewed. Um, the big one, or I should start with the small one first. Carlito, no shock there. Um, he's pretty much openly has been saying that he's been collecting a paycheck for nothing. He's been feeling like he's been robbing the company. Um, and so that one's not really a surprise. But the R-Truth one definitely is a surprise. Um, I think of it like this. When Vince Jr. bought the promotion from his dad, there was pretty much like this. I don't know if it was written as a rule, but one of the rules that was in place was he can never fire Gorilla Monsoon, Arnold Skoland, Fred Blassie, and there may have been one or two others. Maybe Phil Zacco was another one. I'm not sure. I know he was part owner. That never and Willie Gilzenberg. That those were the others that weren't ever really mentioned in the old Worldwide Wrestling Federation days. Outside of, people thought they were just figureheads, but they really did have some involvement dating all the way back to the origins of the WWE. So R-Truth really to me that feels like if Vince went against his word on his dad and fired Gorilla Monsoon immediately or fired Arnold Skoland immediately. It just whether they're I don't want to say whether they're productive or not, like that's just something you don't do. Gorilla obviously was super productive. Um, I'm pretty sure Arnold Skoland, was doing a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I'm pretty sure he was an agent or a producer, or he did some like local promoting in the Northeast. Not really sure, but I do know that he was around for a very long time. Same with Fred Blassie, he was always around. Um, they would bring him in every once in a while, primetime wrestling, to have some interactions with Bobby Heenan. And so they had contracts. They probably took less money, than they were making when they were fully active. Um, Really, the R-Truth story is how much were they asking him to take a cut? Really, he's a very big merchandise mover, so I almost could justify it no matter what, but it's not my promotion, it's not my company. The one thing about WWE that's become very disappointing is just how much money they're trying to make. It's really just about money at this point. Um, I think putting Slim Jim on the tables is a little much for me. I've for years have been saying like put sponsors on the mat. I was perfectly fine with that. Most promotions did it. They're not the first. They won't be the last. It's always been kind of one of those things that is very easy to do. And so that or on the apron or, around the ring, we've all seen that like that. And I have no problems with that. when we start getting into the actual gimmicks, that's when I start kind of having an issue. Um, I was annoyed at WrestleMania that some of the special gear that people were wearing for their introductions were literally walking sponsorships for that Clash of Clans game. I thought that also was a little much. But I just was like, well, maybe the wrestler themselves enjoy the game, or maybe they thought, this was a good idea. It looked cool, whatever. I didn't care about that. Um, but since then, especially with the WrestleMania being moved, which never has been done before, like WrestleMania 7, they moved from the Los Angeles Coliseum to the sports arena. They said it was because of security reasons. In reality, the tickets weren't doing very well. The sales weren't good enough. They weren't going to get 100,000 people in the Coliseum, where I think it seats like I think it legitimately seats 100,000. So that one was moved, but stayed in the same city. This one is being completely moved. I know they haven't said Las Vegas yet, but we all know it's probably going to be Las Vegas. Um, so that one started a red flag with me. And then second to that was obviously the sponsorships on the tables. I'm shocked that they're not going to have the Cash App logo on all of the ladders for Saturday. Um, but who knows? And then, obviously, letting go our truth, who's just one of those guys that, he seemed like a lifer. You know, I think it's one of those things where, it kind of sets the tone that nobody's safe, regardless of your position, how much money you're making, or how much money you're making the company, really. Um, whether you're loved, hated, how popular or how hated you are, how over you are. It just shows that it doesn't matter. It's a bunch of dollars and cents. And I think, I don't remember who said it, but they said that, ever since TKO took over, WWE has just become another corporate business. And I think the whole R-Truth let go, I don't want to call it a release because he's not being released. There's no like 90-day clause or anything like that. His contract's simply going to run out and he's going to be free to do whatever he wants. So it's not a release, but not renewing his contract really kind of sets the tone that validates that statement that it's just another corporation. Um, I dealt with it myself. I was one of the highest producing workers. Everyone loved me. Everyone used to say I was the mascot of the company I worked for. Not that I like kissed their ass or anything, but it was because I was able to motivate people where others couldn't. Everyone hates corporate jobs. Let's just throw it out there. Very few people actually enjoy it, and those that do are usually positions of power. So in this case, you know, you're getting rid of your mascot really. Like R-Truth was pretty much the mascot of the WWE. He not only brought the fans out, but he also lifted the workers up as well. And I found that parallel to be very similar to me because I was laid off back last September from my job, and very similar situation where it's like the clients loved me, the other workers loved me. It was one of those things where, it was the complete shock. Everyone, it was the shock heard around the world that, if Drew's gone, then that means nobody's safe, and that means everybody can be let go at any time, any moment. And so that also kind of shows me that WWE has become just another, big corporation that has big corporate ideals and mission statements, and nobody's safe. Everyone could be let go at any time. And, maybe this is a sign of bigger things to come because if R-Truth's not safe, who's going to say that the low level guy on the totem pole in WWE is also going to have a job for life? So let's go away from that. I don't have a good segue from it, so let's just move on. Um, I want to talk briefly about AEW, Fire Fest. Um, I didn't take any like notes or anything, but It breezed by for a 4 hour show. I will say that I thought it was a really good show. Um, I've been enjoying AEW for the most part. Um, there's still a lot of like really, really goofy things that go on. Um, and I was reading on Blue Sky, which is the alternative to Twitter or X or whatever it's called, um, where people were complaining, saying that AEW was founded on being silly, that they need to stay silly. No pro wrestling promotion can be all one thing or, or another. ECW was not always just hardcore wrestling. And, it brought in Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Two Cold Scorpio, Chris Ben, who I'm not going to say his full name because he's still kind of a bad person to me. Um, but they brought all those guys in and they were having fantastic technical matches. Rey Mysterio Jr. too. That's where he got, noticed. Um, so when you say that, a promotion needs to just stay blank, that's just showing that you don't understand growth. Every company has to grow. Every company, no matter what, has to make money, whether it's going balls out like WWE in corporate America to just maximize profits, or you're doing, something to make money to be sustainable. You have to make money. Like, no, that's just the way it is. And the way to make money, especially in pro wrestling, is to expand your horizons. You can't just be the wrestling company to parallel ECW again. They couldn't just be the company that sat and worked in the ECW arena every single week. TNA couldn't be the company that just stayed in the impact zone every single week. You know, one, you burn out the crowd. Like that's just the way it works. That's why in the territory days, they used to bring new bookers in all the time. Once a booker kind of burned out the territory, they would bring a new booker in. They'd bring their own guys, and it would kind of refresh the promotion. It would start over. It was a natural cycle. Don't really got that right now. You got your promotion, you got it, on a certain day or certain days of the week. Um, and you have certain number of hours to fill. And that's basically what we're doing right now. But to say AEW has to stay just one genre, if we could say that, of professional wrestling, that's just showing that you don't understand that a company needs to grow. Wrestling is a lot like a variety show. Like you have a lot of everything. You'll have your comedy spots, you'll have your popcorn match, you'll have your showcase match, you'll have your serious blood feuds. These are all things that show a well-rounded promotion. Look back to WWE Attitude Era, not when it got super, super stupid, but even still, you would have feuds like Austin and Undertaker or Austin Kane, where it was, first blood matches, but then you'd have Mark Henry and Mae Young or, something like that. It was a variety, it was a mix of everything. You can't have just all one or the other because you just can't because it's just going to get boring. Same thing with, like the high action spots and, fast moving guys. There's a reason why, WCW and really only used the lucha guys for certain things. And they eventually branched out into more based on who could be versatile. Um, but if you had a whole show of nothing but that, I don't think the crowd would have been invested. That's how you kill a crowd. Crowds will just stop reacting because you're constantly going to have to try to one up each other. So when you think of it like that, if you have just a full comedy show, if the first joke lands really hard, that's going to set the tone. And then if everything else isn't as funny, the crowd's going to get milder and milder and softer until you don't have a reaction at all. And that's what was happening with AEW when it came to either comedy or the high spot matches. Because at some point, you are going to reach that level where you physically are unable to do anything that will top what was just seen. Um, you know, Guys are now doing 640, nine whatevers, in their flips, but it's like at some point you reach that apex of what physical ability is. And we're progressing past that. 20 years ago, I don't think anybody would have been able to do those moves. We're evolving in pro wrestling and really pushing the bounds of what human limits are, which is fine, but you can't have a whole show of that. Um, right now, I think AEW is as well balanced as it's ever been. I think everything is clicking for them outside of the Death Riders. I think John Moxley's title reign needs to just end. Having your championship in a Halliburton case, which is comically small. It's not even like a big box. We all know what the AEW World Championship looks like. And to have a box that's or a briefcase that's literally a quarter of the size of it is comically horrible. Um, I think they just need to move on from that. If they want to keep the stable going, that's great. But every time they come out, it's just really flat. Um, and it just seems like a lot of the guys in it just don't fit the role that they're playing or they're being. Um, but all in all, Fighter Fest for 4 hours, it breezed by faster than an episode of SmackDown. I'll give you that for sure. Um, So, anyways, let's get back to the weekend at hand. Let's start with Worlds Collide. I'm excited for this. First show with AAA and WWE, together with WWE owning the majority of the company. Um, the last Worlds Collide was actually when Worlds Collide. Um, that was, and I mean, I'm pretty sure WWE's done Worlds Collide since, but in terms of a AAA joint show with someone, it was when Worlds Collide. I think it was November 94. It was at the Los Angeles Sports Arena. I remember they promoted it on WCW TV, and I actually owned at one point, I don't know if I still do, the VHS commercial tape of it, um, which I don't remember much of the show except for the last two matches, which were a tag team match with Art Barr and Eddie Guerrero against Octagon, I believe it was, and El Hijo de Santo. Um, which obviously is the son of El Santo, um, in a I think it was a mask versus hair match. Fantastic match. If you can go out and watch it, like go ahead and find that. The other match that really doesn't get talked about much, because that match was so good, was the main event, which had Conan in it. And if you've never seen Conan pre NWO or pre WCW, man, he was about as big a baby face as you can get as Hulk Hogan. I would consider him the Mexican Hulk Hogan at that time. Like he was just that guy. Um, but let's talk about AAA, just for the sake of people who may not know what it really is. Um, it was founded because the owner Antonio Pena wanted freedom. He wanted creative freedom. I don't know if he was the booker or if he was just someone who threw out ideas. I don't remember, but I remember or reading about it because I was not old enough to know all this at the time. Um, he was arguing with someone who I think was the booker or maybe, was part of it, who wanted to keep things like basic. As basic as Lucha Libre is. To us, it's probably all insane nonsense stuff that makes no sense to us. But keeping it, one-on-one, tag team, trios, not really having many gimmicks, maybe a steel cage match here or there, but basically just straight up pro wrestling matches. Whereas I know Antonio Pena wanted to get, kind of wild with the gimmicks, wanted to really push the boundaries of, what a wrestling gimmick is. And he wanted to do more matches. He wanted to do, no disqualification matches, um, mask versus hair matches with, additional gimmicks and stipulations added to them. And eventually he just broke away and his guy was Conan. That was his big baby face for a while. I remember reading in the magazines about Conan and Jake the Snake Roberts in '92, I think it was. Maybe it was '93. which eventually led to Jake Roberts losing his hair. I honestly haven't seen a lot of that on YouTube. I really should look up and actually finally watch that stuff. But AAA is kind of the alternative to traditional pro wrestling. They really stepped out, and they this really is no surprise to me. But I'm excited for it. I just looked over some of the matches, and I'm really looking forward to Vikingo versus Chad Gable, obviously. Stephanie Vacour and her Lola Vice. I don't really know Lola Vice. I don't really watch NXT. Um, I've seen clips, and she's very athletic. Against Tormenta and Dalise. Dalise is a long, standing, I would say, veteran of Lucha Libre. She's well known in Lucha areas, and fans who really watch Lucha know who she is. Um, the Fatal Four Way is going to be just like I said, which you can't have too much of. Ethan Page is kind of the outlier in that match because I see, Javion Evans, who I've seen, a couple times, Laredo Kid, who I've seen, and obviously Phoenix. They're high flying, absolute batshit crazy type movements. Ethan Page, I don't think is really known for that. I'm pretty sure he can, do a little bit of flying. So that'll be an interesting one to see. The six-man tag match, I'm honestly surprised. I don't know what's going on in Lucha Libre these days, but Psycho Clown actually took the mask of Dr. Wagner Jr. So I'm surprised that we got El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. teaming with Psycho Clown. And so maybe there was some type of makeup there. That's pretty much when I stopped. I didn't really watch Lucha by then. I was watching Lucha, I started watching after the When Worlds Collide VHS. It was either on Galavision or Univision. I can't remember which one. Thanks to AAA, I actually got AP credits in Spanish 4. So I didn't have to take Spanish in college or any type of foreign language, which awesome. So I did watch back then for a while. I watched up until I want to say either 2009 or 2010. El Zorro won the Mega Championship, and that was pretty much my sign that I was like, all right, the golden days of AAA Lucha Libre is done. And so I kind of just stopped watching there. Um, so, but I am familiar with the history of AAA, at least from 94 to about 2010. I did watch pretty regularly at that point until they lost TV. Because for a while there, it seemed like I was getting either AAA, but then after a few months, I would start getting CMLL, and then after a couple months, it would go back to AAA. It just seemed like each time that I was getting super invested into one promotion, they lost like their TV deal, or I lost the channel um, with cable. And so, AAA, I'm looking forward to it. One thing that I am looking forward to, and this is probably just me, but I am an absolute slut for how the building is set up, how the entrances are set up, how clean the everything looks. And so I'm really interested to know if how they're going to set this up. Are they going to use a hexagon ring? I doubt that. Will it be a smaller ring? Because WWE rings are bigger than pretty much every other ring that if you've ever stepped foot in a ring, they're usually 16 by 16, sometimes 18 by 18. So it's like there's going to be struggles. I remember DDP saying when he first moved from WCW to WWE, one of the biggest problems was the ring size, because obviously when you're hitting the ropes, you have to have a stride to where you're taking three steps. So you hit the rope, first step, second step, transition, and then you're back off. If you're not used to them extra 2 feet by 2 feet, you're going to struggle because your transition is going to be completely off, and that's when you're going to run the risk of transitioning too early, and then you're leaning back to hit the ropes, and the ropes aren't there because you still got another 2 feet. That's when your head and neck go between the top and middle rope. So I'm interested to see how this is going to look. Are they going to showcase AAA like how they look, how they do, or is it going to be just another WWE production? That's something that I'm looking forward to. That's something that I really hope to really see. Moreover than the actual show, that's what I'm looking forward to. So that tells you, where my mind goes. So next we got Money in the Bank. This is a four-match show, which I tend to like, which is going to be interesting just because, you do have your two Money in the Bank matches, which can usually go about, 25, 30 minutes. It's unlike the Rumbles where they go like an hour each. So, maybe they're trying to fit this into 2 hours. Usually it's like two more to 3 hours, but who knows? Maybe because we got AAA at three, I want to step back too about that before going into Money in the Bank. My wife asked me, she was like, why are they giving this away on YouTube for free? And, my response, and maybe it's correct, maybe it's not. It's a showcase show. It's trying to get people invested into AAA. It's trying to justify the purchase of AAA. And the way to do that is by going out, giving away a show that will showcase that. You want a show that's not going to be seen on Netflix where your max audience is maybe 5 million people and they have to pay a subscription for it. Most WWE fans have no idea what AAA is. Or they have some base level knowledge of it from them working with TNA and if they're older WCW and or if they I don't remember if they had a deal with AEW or not. I know CMLL has a deal with AEW now. Um, so really, you have to sell the promotion. You have to sell their workers, which I feel like they've done an absolutely horrible job to this point. Um, I kept saying, anytime they did put it over, anytime, they did like a video, like a little package on it to build it up, they really needed to be doing video packages of these wrestlers that was longer than 10 seconds. They should have did, old school music videos, had some music, showcase them, showcase their biggest moments, their biggest moves. You bought the promotion, you own all the footage. Why are you not giving us introductions? When worlds collide, the main event is, I'm assuming it's gonna be Chad Gable versus Vikingo. Why not do a minute and a half video package of Vikingo and all of the cool shit that he's done in his career? You'll get people immediately invested. Um, Same thing with Pagano and Psycho Clown. There's enough going on that you can put them over with a music video. Hell, I'm sure music videos have been done in AAA for them. Just, rework them. So it's just one of those things where it's a free show for a reason. One, they want to see where their baseline is. How many people are going to watch AAA and WWE or NXT because it's probably going to be more of an NXT type deal? How many people are going to watch this? How many people are watching it just because it's free? You know, but really, you want to get that baseline. You want to know where you're at. Um, and you want to have that feeler because that way you can go, okay, well, 10 million people watch this, and you can break down the demographics by, country, location, whatever. And then you can say, of those 10 million, if we charged $10, how many do you think you'll will watch? And, if let's say you have 10 million viewers and you get 10%, there you go. You got your number right there. So that's what this is really about. This is about, really getting a baseline of popularity as well as trying to showcase the talents when they really should have showcased them on WWE TV leading up to this. But that's just me. That's just, my, I guess, in retrospect booking. But I feel like even like let's go back to WrestleMania weekend with the Hall of Fame. You know, they did video packages literally every show about Triple H when they really should have done, at least one video package for each Hall of Fame person and aired it on, Raw or SmackDown. That way, fans who are younger could at least know why. Um, but they focused so much on Triple H that it took away from the other people, and a lot of people probably just didn't know what the hell was going on. Same thing here with AAA. In retrospect, my booking would have been showing them on WWE TV, showing all of them, not just Vikingo. Obviously, that's going to be their star. That's their moneymaker. He's like, besides the two women that are going to be in the tag team match, who were shown once, nobody's going to know who the hell these people are. And I think they're just hoping that on brand recognition alone, they'll get people to watch, and just the excitement of the joint show is also going to draw people in. I know that's what's drawing me in, not necessarily the show itself, but just how the logistics of everything's going to work. All right, so let's go now to Money in the Bank. I talked about the AAA Worlds Collide enough. Um, like I said, you got two Money in the Bank matches. You got the tag team match, and then you got the Women's Intercontinental Championship match. Let's start with the Women's Intercontinental title match because I can knock this out real quick. Um, I think Becky's going to win this one. Obviously, the if she loses, she can no longer challenge for the title. I mean, it could go either way because we really don't know how long she's going to be on TV. If this is long term or if this is just to give Lyra the rub. It could go. It really could go either way. But I'm thinking Becky's going to be around for a little bit, at least probably through SummerSlam. And so with that, I think she's going to pick up the win here. WWE has done everything with Lyra, and I don't. I hate saying that I don't like people because obviously, they're there for a reason. And I don't know her personally, so I'm not trying to say I don't like her as a person, just the character itself. It falls flat on me for me. I don't understand it. Um, Crowd reactions aren't, what I would expect of, the Intercontinental Champion. Um, but who knows? She's shown a little bit of fire, but it seems very forced to me. Um, I think she's just a type of person who's just really, really nice in real life. And when you're just like, get fired up, she's just like, I'm fired up. And it's like, she can't really project it. Like, she doesn't understand what it's like to be fired up because she's so naturally like chill. That's just the sense I'm getting is they're trying to push her to be angry, to be, hit that violent level. And I think it just comes across as forced. Like it's someone playing the role of being angry versus someone actually being angry. Um, Back in the day, she would just been lost in the shuffle, I believe. There's nothing that really stands out about her, um, except her theme music, which has the woo, but that doesn't make sense to me because isn't she supposed to be like some god of, I don't know, but like whatever bird she's trying to be a god of doesn't make that sound. And so it just doesn't make sense. So it makes me feel like they gave her the music to get the pop, which she does. The crowd will play along with it, but any other time, they're just they're not receptive to her. And at least from what I'm hearing, her matches are fine, but they're not anything spectacular. They're nothing that stands out to me. Um, and yeah, so I just think Becky's gonna win it. I feel like she needs to have the win. Um, this reminds me of like the WrestleMania 3 match with Junkyard Dog and Harley Race, where, if, Junkyard Dog lost, he'd had a bow to Harley Race. If Lyra loses, she's got to raise Becky Lynch's hand. It's not really high stakes as if you lose, you can never challenge for the title again. Um, but, in WrestleMania 3, JYD took the L. He lost and he ended up having to bow. And so I feel like she can lose this match in, probably some shitty way and have to raise the hand. And she really hasn't lost anything. And they can even set up a third match for SummerSlam, which I think would be fine. And like I said, I think that's when Becky will probably finish up for a while. Because from what I remember when she first had her kid, She basically said like she wanted to become a mom. She didn't want to be wrestling anymore. But I think like she obviously has the itch again, or else she wouldn't be doing it. Um, but yeah, I don't think she's going to be around super long term. I think she's just hanging around for a few months just so everyone can be like, oh, hey, there's Becky Lynch. Like, she's back. She's still around. She could still wrestle. And so, yeah, there's that. Next, I'm pretty sure this is going to be. I'm trying to think of the match order that would make sense. And so I mentioned this one, the women's intercontinental title match first, because when I'm looking at this list here, it has it as the first one. Um, I think personally they're going to open with the men's Money in the Bank match, which obviously I think is going to be won by Seth Rollins. He doesn't really need it, and he's got a built-in feud already with Jay. Um, but he's feuding with Jay, and that leads me to the night after with Jay and Gunther having their rematch. I can't see Gunther losing that personally, but who knows? Like, I really don't know anymore with WWE. A lot of pro wrestling convention is gone with them. So in my head, I was thinking he would win it, but who knows? Basically, because Seth Rollins is going to need it. Um, but they can do like a double transition. They can do, Jay still champion, some obviously because he's not defending. He loses it to Gunther at the night after Money in the Bank. Then Gunther loses to CM Punk at some point, during it because obviously Punk's already set the tone of the Summer of Punk, where he wants to be world champion again. So you can do that, and then that's the double transition, from Jay to Gunther, Gunther to Punk, Punk to Seth Rollins. Seth and Punk aren't done. And I think adding the World Heavyweight Championship to it will give more fuel to the fire. That is their feud. So if I was going to do it, I'd probably do it that way. Um, but I don't know. I think it'll probably be, complete dumpster fire. Um, couple of the guys like LA Knight, Solo, like not really known for their high flying crazy stuff. I'm sure they'll get involved in a couple spots, but this is really going to be for Penta, Seth Rollins, to shine. El Grande Americano, obviously, they put him in because of the lucha gimmick. Andrade is going to probably be the one that takes all the big bumps and, a lot of the crazy stuff. But I think Seth Rollins is going to win, and he'll hold on to it probably at least till SummerSlam, maybe even Survivor Series. So if we had that one first, then we will probably have the women's intercontinental title match next. After that, then they'll probably do the women's Money in the Bank match. Um, this one is very wide open to me. A lot of people probably would say Rhea, but I think again, she's got a built-in like she doesn't need a briefcase to get a title shot. This really should go to someone who needs the briefcase in order to get it. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I think Stephanie Vacour, she's not my pick, but I think if she did win it, that would make sense because she's probably the hottest female talent that's in wrestling right now. Um, she came in NXT and just blew everything away. When they brought her in the night after WrestleMania, she automatically proved her worth, and she was absolutely insane during that. And ever since then, she's just been super hot ticket that, they moved her up super fast because of it. And, I wouldn't be surprised or shocked if she won it. But my pick for this one is Naomi. And here's why. She, since turning heel, since the whole Jade story started, she has been doing her best work ever. Not only add to the fact that while she was gone from WWE, she trained so hard and during her TNA run became such a good worker that I think WWE has recognized that she's getting a lot of prominent spots. And I think if they want to move her up or, try to insert Jade into the women's title, SmackDown title picture, I think the best way to do it is by having Naomi win the women's Money in the Bank. And that way, we can start inserting all of those people, Bianca as well. We have Bianca, Jade, Naomi, whoever the champion will be when that whole thing starts going. I can't say for sure it'll be Tiffy, but this just adds in layers. It has a lot of ground to work with. I know in the past, while like the Money in the Bank person isn't automatically thrusted into the women's title picture, but I think in both of these cases, the men's and women, any of these people can automatically be penciled in for a title in the title picture immediately, not necessarily getting title shots or feuding with the champions, but they can be that person to where they're always in the mix. They're always being talked about, they're always being referenced to. And I think, for me, those two are obviously Seth Rollins and Naomi. So I think those two are the winners of the Money in the Bank matches. When are they going to cash in? I don't know for sure. If I were booking, I would have Gunther win at the night after or the Raw after, and then I would have CM Punk beat him maybe SummerSlam, and then you can do the Seth Rollins switch like immediately that day, or you can build it up from there to Survivor Series. That's kind of how I would do it same day at SummerSlam. Like I would have, Jay lose to Gunther, Gunther lose to Punk, Punk loses immediately. And you can even play that back to the WrestleMania where he cost Drew McIntyre, even though Drew's not involved in the feud at all. You can like kind of bring it back to say, hey, this also, like, you were the one that screwed Drew over, and now you're the one getting screwed. How does it feel? So we can do that type of storyline. That would actually refresh the storyline between Seth and Punk very nicely. And then as for Naomi, I don't really know. Tiffy, not Steffi. Tiffy is still pretty hot right now. But I personally feel she's kind of getting towards the end of her run. I think, she needs to take some time away. I think to me, it's just at getting to the end of the run. It's one of those things you can't really explain it. You just have that feeling when something's run their course or ran its course. Like you just kind of get that sense in wrestling where you just go, this is kind of wrapping up. It's time to move on to something else. And the problem, looking back at history with WCW, like they didn't know how to wrap up NWO, and it ended up getting way too long, complicated, convoluted, and it ended up hurting the business overall because they didn't know how to wrap it up and they didn't know how to move on once NWO ran its course. They were trying too much to refresh it while keeping it still relevant versus just shutting it down, having a final, end to it. And then you can always bring it back, later, but you have to like kill it off for a while. Jim Cornette always says, "How can you miss me if I'm never gone?" That's kind of where we're at. I feel where we're at with Tiffy is, you know, she's been a great champion. She's improved and she held her own at WrestleMania, but it's just time to get a new, a fresh champion. And I think Naomi would be that perfect chance. And then you can move her into a title feud with Jade. And obviously Jade is the big money that they're gonna invest. They've already been invested in, and I think they want to invest everything into her. And so really this becomes, how do you get the belt on Jade? And I think that's just how it works. So finally, for the main event, we got Cody and Jay versus John Cena and Logan Paul. What the fuck can I say about this match? It's probably going to be enjoyable. It's probably going to be a train wreck. Um, I'm shocked they haven't announced it to be like a no DQ or something, so there can be just just overbooked the shit out of it, like they did the Cody versus Roman at WrestleMania in Philadelphia. So I'm not sure. I mean, we still have a SmackDown to go. As I'm recording this, we're 50 minutes away from SmackDown. So they could be adding more gimmicks and more stuff into this than I expect or that I know of. Um, I don't know. Like I'm not expecting if it's just going to be a basic tag match. I'm not really expecting much. Um, I don't know if it's just the WrestleMania main event with Cody and Cena that really is just taking me out of it. Um, but their match was meh, it was just there. Like I thought at first, like it was a great old school Jim Crockett pro wrestling match. Like the crowd did not get it. The crowd was mostly confused during the match, but I feel like they did it one because Cody's probably always wanted to have a match that's built around like his dad's kind of booking ideology, which is Jim Crockett 1986 professional wrestling world title match. So he got that. John obviously did it because he probably wanted to prove that he can have a very good wrestling match. Um, but that style just didn't translate into 2025. I personally thought the first, I would say 70% of the match was great, but that final 30% was just so, oh, I don't want, I see, I hate saying bad about things. I hate burying things, like, especially in wrestling, because there's always like some type of redemption or redeeming quality to it. But I just, that finish was just so bad. It was such lazy booking to me. It was like, we need John to cheat. What are we just gonna do? Ah, fuck it. Just give him the belt and let him hit him with it. Oh, well, what are we gonna do before that? Like, you know, we're gonna have Cody be conflicted. Why? He was so angry, but here, neither here nor there. Like, obviously, Cody's got the fire now. Maybe, and this is how I'm booking it to to kind of win is Cody's going to beat Cena. He's going to pin Cena. He might even use the belt this time. Like there might be a way that either the world title or the WWE title get involved and Cody pins Cena after hitting him with the belt. They have to have that come back full circle. They have to have it in order if they're going to continue this and have Cody go back and be a top challenger for the WWE title is they have to come full circle and he has to get over that hump. It's the same, it really is the same story as him losing to Roman the one WrestleMania and then winning it back at the next one. It revolves around, I guess, I don't want to say finishing the story because he's already done that. But that's just an old kind of wrestling trope where, the babyface kind of hits that limit because he doesn't want, it's like Batman where he doesn't want to kill someone, but he's willing to go as far as he can without doing that. That's kind of where Cody got is he went as far as he could without sacrificing his beliefs and it cost him. So now he's got to come full circle and get over that, you know. And maybe the Batman one was a bad reference because eventually, like, if my thinking is Batman would eventually have to kill to get over it, but he has to get over that hump, and the only way to do it is where he got stuck the last time. He has to go ahead and do it. And so I think here, if Cody, wins, he's got to use the belt at either here or at some point. He's got to do it because that's the only way he's going to get over that hump and you know be the challenger to be that guy that can win the world title again. Um, my only other thinking in this is potentially, and if they're not going to put the belt on Gunther and do kind of the double transition I was talking about, the other potential is John Cena and Jey Uso. It could be something where they're building it up to maybe being a winner take all, kind of what they're doing with Kenny and Okada in AEW. But this would be for the world titles. And, this possibly could be so they can give Cena another world title to his accolades. So that's my other thinking is this could be kind of teasing that to see how far they can go with it. If they can get Cena to win both belts and then he could potentially lose both at the same time, or, he can lose to Cody Rhodes, the WWE title, but then he'll still have the world title and he'll still be able to say that he's going to end pro wrestling. But I don't know. Like that's me thinking ahead. I haven't really put much thought into the booking ahead of it, other than the double transition, which really wasn't a big idea into my head until I started talking it out here. So yeah, this was obviously a longer video, but when you're talking pro wrestling and pro wrestling shows and predictions, it's never going to be done in 10 to 15 minutes. I don't know anybody that does it. In fact, most of these people go a lot longer than I probably have, especially the actual pro wrestlers and the popular groups. I've seen Jim Cornette review shows and preview shows, and that's gone an hour and a half long. I don't even know if I could talk for that long. Um, but there it is. There's my commentary on some of the wrestling going on today. The preview of Worlds Collide, preview of Money in the Bank. Um, I would preview AEW, but then I would be getting into super long territory that I really don't want to do because I really don't want to have to, do any types of real edits and anything like that. But I will say this: Adam Page is the guy. Adam Page is their guy. If he does not win the world title, I think they screwed their chance on anyone actually doing it, and it being worth anything. Like, you want to have that world championship title change, especially from a heel to a baby face, where you get that massive pop. Like, you get that pop that of just everyone's been waiting for. Adam Page, like, and his promos are just out of this world next level. Maybe the best promo in wrestling right now. Um, Cody being back, he might take that back over. But for right now, from the start of the Owen Hart tournament up until uh, the last Fighter Fest, man, his promos are just absolutely next level good. The whole redemption story has to be, and it's just same thing as Cody. Like, you come full circle, you have to get past that. He's gotten past everything so far. There's still the whole Swerve Strickland kind of dynamic. But I think they can pick things back up with the world title involved. In fact, I think that's your best bet is if they're still laying the seeds of I'll never forget him, I'll never do this, I'll never work with him, then the only way to make things interested again is to make the stakes higher. And I think the highest stakes you could have or should have is the world championship. And so I think from there, they got to pull the trigger on him. What that means for Death Riders, what that means for Moxley, I don't know, because his basically his run now is predicated on him being the world champion. The Death Riders, control the world championship. That's the whole basis of his being right now, and just brutalizing people, holding the belt hostage. So if he loses that, I don't really know what's next for him or the Death Riders, but they need to be done. That again, like I was saying with Lyra, and what I was saying, there, and what I was saying with Tiffy, things have come to a natural end, in my opinion. Like, you just have that feeling that it's over, or it needs to be over. Same thing with Moxley. I feel like it's overdue. I feel it's way overdue. Um, but you know what? I get why they're doing it again because I just mentioned, it's his identity. They may not know what to do with him after. They may be just going like, "Hey, we want you to hold the title for this long. Maybe you're getting ready to take a break. Maybe you're going to take some time off and chill out and relax." But at the moment, it's reached its natural conclusion. They got to just move on from it. And I think Adam Page is that guy. That guy, he's the biggest baby face that they could have right now. And I like how they're kind of protecting him by only having him come out and do promos. He's not you know, getting exposed. He's not getting, his ass beat every week. He's coming out cutting these absolutely top tier promos, and it would be all for nothing. It would honestly be a career killer for him if he doesn't win the belt. So I'm going to end with that. Like I said, I didn't want to get too much into AEW, but we'll talk about that more later as it gets closer. For now, everything's going well with me. My knee's starting to feel better. A lot of wrestling this week, a lot of wrestling this weekend. Take some time, get some pizza, get some wings, get some blue cheese with that wings. Because if you eat with ranch, like you're a vile human being. Um, so make sure you get some blue cheese with those wings. Make sure you get some pizza. Sit back, enjoy, and hopefully we have a great weekend of wrestling. With that said, never give up on your dreams. Like every setback is just, a stone in the road. Right now, I kind of got a boulder in front of me, but it'll get better. It's gonna get better. It's already getting better. My knee's feeling all right, um, and it'll get better every day. So have a great time. Enjoy the weekend. Have great. Hopefully the shows are great, and we'll come back and talk to you later.